This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Carnival Vista today on a 6-night Caribbean review out of Port Canaveral. Plus, as always, staff writer Richard Sims on deck with cruise news. Jumping right to him now. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Doug, we're on the same continent finally. I have to ask you, the last time I talked to you, you were getting ready to fly home. Did you get caught up in all that craziness with the IT disaster?
Oh my gosh, it was, yeah. So I was in, where was I, Tokyo now? I was in Shanghai on the jetway and boarding the flight. And I started getting all these crazy alerts. So I get to my seat, pilot comes on, and, it's one of those from the flight deck, blah, blah, blah. You barely understand him, right? But he was like a little bit of a situation happening in the U.S. with an IT issue with a third-party server or whatever he said. We're going to be sitting here for a little while. So a little while turned into 2 hours. We were sitting there because remember, I was like 12 hours ahead over in Shanghai. After the 2 hours, he came on and said, okay, we got clearance to go. Airspace in the ground stop was lifted. I guess he was saying something along those lines. And then we went 14 hours. So I was on the plane for 16 hours. It was 2 hours sitting there waiting because the pilot was explaining that because we boarded the aircraft in China, in Shanghai, if we got off of it, we were technically going from China to America, even though we weren't really in America. So if we were to go and if we were to debark again, we would have to go through immigration again. So he's like, it's better just to keep you on the plane here. And no one had an issue with it because, it's passport control and immigration and everything's an issue anyway. So 14 hours later, I was in Dallas and then that flight was delayed. Long story short, wound up landing in Jacksonville at 3:30. Jumping right to news here, we start off with some fairly big news from Carnival Cruise Line.
And not just big, huge, literally huge. Carnival has just announced plans to build 3 new ships, each of which will be able to carry up to 8,000 passengers. Now, listen to what I'm saying there. 8,000 passengers, not passengers and crew, passengers. The new ships are expected to be delivered in the summers of 2029, 2031, and 2033. And keep in mind, this is on top of the 2 XL-class ships, which are slated to join the fleet right now in 2027 and 2028. So that's 5 ships between now and, 2033. We did an informal survey of Cruise Radio listeners asking how they felt about these mega ships being introduced, not only by Carnival, but by other lines as well, obviously. Of the 1,500 or so people who responded, 79% said they thought ships are getting too big. 19% said they didn't feel that way, that, this was okay with them, and 3% had mixed feelings. So, Doug, let me give you my concern about this. We're seeing more and more port cities complain about over-tourism and, taking actions designed to curb it, whether it's limiting the number of passengers, limiting the number of ships. Meanwhile, at the same time, we've got the cruise industry making more ships, bigger ships, and they're just it almost feels like they're disregarding the warning bells that are being sounded by some of these ports like Mykonos and Santorini and Juneau, and sort of plowing forward. And it's kind of becoming a question of when is enough, whether it's the number of ships or how many passengers they can hold. It feels like there's going to be a clash coming somewhere down the line. When I was talking about this on Twitter, my friend Bubba from Bubba Cruises and Concerts had a really good question. He said, aside from Galveston, Port Canaveral, and Miami, what other ports in the U.S. can hold ships of this size? I don't know that I have the answer. I don't think Manhattan could hold a ship that big. The Breakaway, which is far smaller than the kind of ship we're talking about, is a big ship, and it pretty much presses, I think, the limit. Do you have any idea what the answer on that is? Are there other ports in the U.S. that can handle, these 235,000 gross ton ships?
I'm just thinking of deep water ports here for cargo. Bayonne, New Jersey is probably one of them. Port Everglades. I know Tampa, you'd have bridge restrictions. Jacksonville, bridge restrictions. Same thing with Baltimore. So there's not a lot. Brooklyn, maybe. I'm not really sure. I'm not too familiar with that area up there. And I don't think that the Manhattan cruise terminal could hold one that big because, you have the ass end of most of those cruise ships sticking out anyways.
Well, I'm also wondering if, this is happening between now and 2033. So they do have time that they could say, you know what, we're going to do some extra dredging at this port, or we're going to expand the terminal, because that's the other thing. 8,000 passengers to cycle through a cruise terminal. That's a lot. Like I sail out of New York all the time, and you get 3,000 passengers in there waiting to board, and that's a lot. What would they do with 8,000 passengers?
And of course, Fincantieri is building these Carnival Cruise Line ships, as you mentioned. And they also built this next ship, Sun Princess, which also has quite the issue. And we don't really know where it stems from.
This is such a weird story. So when Sun Princess rolled out back in, I think it was February, one of the things the company was really high on from the start, when they were when they were first talking about the design of the ship and how it was going to be such a game changer for Princess, who was very clearly making a big play for a more family-friendly audience to sort of bring down the average age of cruisers on the ship. And so they had this whole thing called Park 19. It was going to involve a ropes course and a new kind of climbing wall and this big ticket attraction, the roll glider, which was going to allow passengers to sort of soar through the air up above the decks, sort of like Carnival's Bolt Coaster, but if it was more of a hang glider, I guess. Anyway, these attractions were basically installed on the ship. And when the ship started sailing for its inaugural, Princess was like, these attractions aren't quite ready. We'll roll them out a little bit later. Well, here we are a little bit later, and instead of opening these attractions, they released a statement saying, well, let me just read it. We regret to announce that Princess is unable to accept delivery of the roll glider, coastal climb, and ropes course features within Park 19 aboard Sun Princess, and these experiences will not be opening. Now, that's fascinating to me because, first of all, they're saying they're not going to be able to accept delivery of something that's already on board their ships. It seems like they've kind of already accepted delivery. But I suppose that must be some kind of technical term, meaning, maybe they're going to return it, send it back to the manufacturer. Again, to be clear, these attractions are already on board. So they have these non-functioning attractions, which they spent a lot of money building and a lot of time promoting, all as part of their big growth into the family-friendly market. And they're never going to open. No clue what's going to go in their place. And even more interesting is the question of what went wrong, especially where the ropes course is concerned. Because, a ropes course isn't exactly something new or innovative. They've been on ships for, years and years. My suspicion here, and again, this is just me speculating, but the fact that the ropes course is also impacted by this makes me, it sort of leads me to the assumption that the superstructure of the glider and the superstructure of the ropes course were connected, and that something is not right within all of that. I don't know what it could be, but that's kind of the only conclusion that I personally could come to. So, yeah, very weird, very weird, very, very weird. And we have no answers.
I mean, I don't know if you remember this one, but back in 2016, I think it happened from 2016 to 2018 when Carnival Vista came out and the Sky Ride. Remember, there was a bunch of issues on the Sky Ride. It was closed for a ton of sailings. And Fincantieri also made that as well. I'm not trying to put any blame on Fincantieri in this, but it does seem interesting that same shipyard, same type of adventure issues.
It also makes me think, hey, maybe we should rethink what we're putting on top of ships. Maybe we don't need a Ferris wheel and a swing over the edge and a roller coaster and a glider. Maybe we can think of something else that, especially when you consider that most people are only going to use that once, if not, if that often, especially if it's a pay feature. But that's another topic for another day.
Next up, we have a nightmarish type story about a family who got left behind by their cruise ship.
This really is an awful story. And the worst part is that the family in question did everything right. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. So, this was 9 members of the Galt family from Oklahoma. They were sailing on Norwegian Encore, got off the ship in Ketchikan to go see one of those really popular, lumberjack shows. When the show was over, there was apparently a lot of chaos. As we know because they've been talking about over tourism in Alaska. We know that they have a lot of ships in port at the same time now, and things get kind of crazy and crowded. That seems to be the case here. There was a lot of chaos when it came time to get on the bus and go back to the port. They were just about to get on the bus and they were told, "Oh, this bus is full, so take the next one." But there was a problem. There was no next bus. So eventually they made their own way back to the pier, but by the time they got there, the family was told that the ship had left without them. Now, normally in a situation like that, what you might consider doing is just like, it's inconvenient, obviously, but you hop on a plane and you catch it at the next stop. Unfortunately, the family couldn't do that because some of their passports were on board the ship and they needed to get to Canada to catch up with it. And so it just wasn't possible. So there's that problem. Okay, 9 people stuck. It took them several days to get home. They had to deal with, hotels and flights and canceled flights and rebooked flights and all of this. Then, just when you think things can't possibly get worse, they get home and they get hit with a $9,000 bill from Norwegian Cruise Line. Now, remember, the original cruise was around $30,000. Now they're getting hit with a $9,000 bill. Why? Because each of them were charged $971 for violating what's known as the Passenger Vessels Services Act. What that basically means is if you are in a port and you do not report back to the ship in time and the ship sets sail, the cruise line can charge you for that. They have they are allowed to charge you for that by this act. So they got hit with a $9,000 bill for missing the trip. Now, you'll remember at the beginning of the story, I said they did everything right. And here is what I mean by that. You and I talk a lot about the fact that when you arrive in a port and you want to do excursions, you have 2 choices. You can buy an excursion through the ship, or you can go independent and, do your own thing. When you buy an excursion through the ship, one of the big reasons to do that is because the ship knows where you are and they will not leave without you. In this case, these people did exactly that. They bought the cruise excursion, or they bought the excursion through the ship. But something went terribly wrong. Like everything that could go wrong for these people went wrong. Something went wrong here. And despite the fact that they got this excursion through the ship, they wound up being left behind. Ultimately, NCL did its best, I guess. Here, their various expenses were refunded, including the $9,000 fee, and Norwegian offered them a prorated refund on the parts of the trip they missed, and a 20% off on their next cruise. I mean, frankly, I'm of the mind that these people should have gotten a full refund and a future cruise credit. I think, this is not a case where they did anything wrong. And given the absolute hell that they went through, yes, Norwegian did what they had to do, but I think they could have gone above and beyond here and, done something more for this family. But yeah, what a can you imagine being these people? And keep in mind, this was a family with like kids. They had like 6 kids with them. So this could not have been a fun couple of days trying to get home.
Speaking of Norwegian Cruise Line, another story here.
Yeah, this is a story that we seem to hear a lot these days, especially with regards to older ships. So, and indeed, this was an older ship because it was Norwegian Jade. The issues that the ship had technical issues that basically impacted their ability to sail at a certain speed, which meant it went slower, which meant the vessel was a day late getting back to port. So those on board had an extra day of sailing on their cruise, and those who were waiting to board lost a day because, you can't have one without the other. Uh, the for some people, having an extra day at sea is awesome, but it can also be a real pain in the butt because if you have travel plans, like it's one thing if you're returning to your home port, but if you have plans, whether it's to fly to another state or another country or whatever, that's a big pain in the butt to have to rearrange all of that. And the same for the people who are coming in, because they're coming in, they're arriving thinking that they're going to set sail on Saturday, but the ship really didn't set sail until Sunday at like midnight or something like that. Yes, the usual offers were extended for prorated fares on the shorter voyage and discounts on future cruises. But what this really comes down to, and again, this is something we talk about a lot, is always have cruise insurance, because the travel insurance helps cover a lot of those expenses. Like if you have to change all your flights, or if you have to get a hotel for whatever because your ship got in late or is leaving late, those things are covered by travel insurance. Most travel insurance, check your policy. But again, always, 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 always have travel insurance, because everybody thinks it won't happen to them until they are in the middle of it.
Yeah, but also speaking of travel insurance, just to drop this in really fast, like hundreds of people missed Utopia of the Seas because of the meltdown incident with the airline flying in day of. And gosh, you're good. I mean, I'm sure there was exceptions made because this was kind of a one-off, but the people who didn't have luggage when they landed or things like that, just travel insurance can help you. I thought I was going to have to use it in Dallas. Luckily, I didn't have to, but I was glad I had that policy for my Asia trip.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually, the first few cruises I did, I don't think I had cruise insurance. And eventually I wised up and I was like, I ended up going with not just travel insurance, but I bought, or not just cruise insurance for an individual cruise, but travel insurance for the whole year. Because, if you take a couple trips a year, it turns out to be worthwhile rather than buying it for each individual trip. And it also, because you're buying an annual policy, it covers things that you didn't necessarily know you were going to do. Like if all of a sudden you decide you're going to take a trip to Disney in the middle of the year, well, guess what? It's already covered. So, not to sound like an ad for travel insurance, but seriously, buy travel insurance.
But also be careful because we had this happen with Ashley. If you use it once, you could max out your benefit for the year as well. So just be careful there if you have an annual pass or policy.
That's really true. Yeah, that's really true.
Our next story involves Carnival Cruise Line rolling out some extra security features on their website.
These aren't designed to keep you safer while on board, but rather to protect your booking, like from the moment you book until you board. Whereas guests were previously asked for the booking number and their last name when they went to the website to, like, let's say you want to go check on something or you want to, maybe book a specialty restaurant, that was what you had to do. You had to enter your booking number and your last name. Now you're being asked more information, including like your birth date, the ship name, the date of your travel and stuff. There's been no formal announcement regarding these changes, at least as of when we're sitting down and recording this, nor was any real reason given. But it seems likely, if we had to speculate, and I love to speculate, it seems pretty likely that this is kind of an indirect reaction to that case. I think it was earlier this year where the woman from Kentucky had her $12,000 booking canceled without her knowledge. I think it was her husband, had posted something on social media that had their booking information and last name on it. And of course, before these changes, that's all you needed. So someone apparently went in and canceled her entire reservation, and she didn't find out until it was far too late. And it turned into a big brouhaha. And so there was a lot of talk about ways to prevent this from happening again. And I suspect that this is a result of that this is sort of, hey, let's put a few more steps in there so that it's not quite as easy for someone to go in and alter or change or, God forbid, cancel your reservation.
All right, staff writer Richard Sims, as always. Thanks, my friend.
Glad to be here.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Have a question or a comment for the show? Yeah! Send an email or voice memo to Doug@cruiseradio.net.
Tommy from the Always Be Booked podcast just returned from a 6-night cruise on Carnival Vista. It was an Eastern Caribbean sailing, Amber Cove, Half Moon, and Grand Turk. Tommy, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Hey, Doug. How are you?
Good, bud. So this was a casino offer, which makes me want to ask you, what do you think activated this comp right out of the gate?
Kind of a little bit of a mystery. I do know that they are, you just got to be involved in the casino program. I don't think it's necessarily... I know I'm not too much of a high roller at all. So I think if you're in the casino program and you check often enough and you're geographically, I guess, located to where you can take advantage of these last minute deals, good things happen.
Fair enough. So this was a 6-night, as mentioned. Give me some pre-cruise thoughts on that. Like, do you always just constantly check to see what comes up and like, oh, I'll just go on this one?
Yeah, I was going to say there wasn't too much time to think about it. I saw it and it was there. A lot of times when you look for them, they go away real quick. They're not available. But if you kind of keep clicking, I don't know what causes that. I feel like maybe some people halfway book, but then, I guess it takes a little while for it to repopulate into the system. I guess that's what happened. But yeah, I check fairly regularly. And when something attractive like this comes up, I think this was $286 for the cruise, which was listed, and I get $100 on board credit. So, that was kind of a no-brainer.
Do you have to pay double occupancy?
No, that's it. Well, I don't know what it was, but that was including everything. And as you know, they put the total number, they put the tax and port charges in there too now. So that was with that as well.
You're in the Boca area, which is South Florida. You cruised out of Port Canaveral, and I was following along with you. And it looks like you almost missed your ship on day one.
I woke up early and I realized I had a little bit of time, tried to sneak in another hour. Now, I don't know if you know the distance between Boca Raton and Port Canaveral. It's about 2.5 hours away. I woke up at 12:15, Doug. So I had to make I woke up, it's like, oh, I'm not making the cruise. I missed it. But then I was like, let me take a shot at it. So I took a shower real fast. Luckily, I was all ready to go the night before, prepped with everything, got in the car, immediately got on the phone with Carnival. And I guess the process is they fill out a form. Now, I don't expect them to wait for me beyond what the final all aboard time is, but I did want them to know that, hey, if you think I'm not coming, if you think I'm not on my way, just to let you know I am. So whatever you could do to leave the gangway open. And I got there. The all aboard time was 3:00. I got there at 2:52. That was it. I found out that there was a little bit of a grace period. They told me that they would allow up until 3:20. So I guess, I made it. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah, good work. I can't remember, Tommy. Is this the one that it debuted in New York City 2016? Did you come on board with me when they had the Carrie Underwood concert? I can't remember because I know there were two of them up there like a couple of years apart.
That was Horizon that we went on the inaugural in New York.
Yeah, okay. Was this your first time on Carnival Vista then?
This was my first time on Carnival Vista, yes.
Okay. So what were your first impressions of Vista when you walked on? She's 8 years old now?
Yeah, so if I'm going to be able to frame it properly, what I would say is I got what I feel like is a unique view. Mm-hmm. Having been on a celebration in a similar casino deal a couple of weeks before that was kind of really resonating in my head. And Celebration is one of my favorite ships. I love the Celebration, absolutely. But I would say that this contrasted, I feel like it shined a light on a lot of the things that changed from the Vista class to the XL class. And I will say that it was a very, very pleasant, I guess not surprise, but it was a pleasant contrast going on the Vista. It just it felt like a Carnival cruise ship, if that makes any sense.
You're saying you like that authentic cruising experience and not the new ships tend to have that antiseptic feel? Yeah,
I just feel like you walking around, navigating your way around the Celebration, as cool as it is and as much as it has to offer, I feel in a little bit of a certain way like it there are parts of it that are just ultra modern and so much going on, and it takes away from that traditional cruise ship feel that we've come to love. And I feel like sometimes it's a little bit of a balance, and I'm not saying I have the answer. I always think we should be moving, making things bigger and better and doing whatever we can to, elevate the experience of the guest. But I got to say, getting on this Carnival Vista cruise ship and moving around the ship and enjoying what I remember about a regular Carnival cruise ship, like you just said, the atrium, the promenade, the pool deck. It just felt like everything about it just felt like a more traditional cruising, contrasting from what I was just on with the Celebration.
What kind of stateroom did the casino gods comp you for this 7-nighter or 6-nighter?
So, yeah, you're not going to get picky with these casino deals. It was an upper lower, and I was pleasantly surprised with a double porthole window.
All right, upper lower, down on Riviera deck 1. Awesome. What kind of layout was it? I know that the ship recently went to dry dock. Any maybe modernized enhancements you may have seen?
Not that I noticed. There was some USB plugs in there, definitely, but it's like crazy now because it is new iPhone, and I'm not necessarily Mr. Technology, but the USB plugs aren't necessarily relevant anymore when you have the I don't know. There's USB A, B, C, D. I can't keep up. I can't keep track, but my charger does not have the regular size USB, so that wasn't necessarily useful to me. And for content purposes, I decided that I was going to, make this all about content and hopefully do a little bit of a wellness cruise, kind of because when you're at sea all these days, I think when we all get on cruise ships, we're all like, well, let's throw the diet out the window. But if you're always at sea, for a good 3 out of 4 weeks, you got to kind of try to keep it together. So I guess I'm getting a little out of what your question was, but the technology was suitable for me because I did bring my desktop computer and my monitor on, and I decided I was going to work several hours a day, and that definitely worked out. So it wasn't USB, but it was plenty of outlets, everything I needed.
I love that you brought your desktop, rolling on with a Commodore 64 and the monitor. And
yeah, I brought my printer and my file cabinet too.
That's awesome. As far as like noise issues, I guess you really didn't have anyone below you, but there is some deck or engine space below you there. So any noise issues, top, bottom, left or right?
Yes, there was noise. I didn't know what to make of it, but every 5 or 6 minutes there would be a huge thud. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it was. I just attributed it to that cruise life, and you're down in the lower bowels of the ship, and there's a lot of moving parts, and I assume that's what it was. But it was a loud thud. I will say I was very curious. I wonder what that is, but it was pretty constant. And of course, you're down that low. You always know whether you have the window open or not. When you're coming into port because they turn on those thrusters, and it's an just is what it is. I don't mind it. I have a passion for cruising, and I take all the good with the bad.
You mentioned you were trying to do a little bit of a detox cruise here, so we'll talk about the food up at the Lido Deck Marketplace, the buffet. How was the selection during the week, and how'd you do?
That was fine. I will say this in general, and not to go on a complain thing, but you've probably noticed it too. Significantly, the days of the grandiose lot of selection buffet is gone, isn't it? I mean, this is like they give you 6 items and you'll like what you get type of thing. Thankfully, it was all good, and they don't necessarily repeat from one day to another. But if you're looking for a bunch of different choices and different types of cuisine, you don't get that in the buffet like you used to.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it's all pretty standard these days. And do you think part of that is though to drive people to specialty?
I think so. They'll tell you. I think it's basically because they don't want to waste food as much. Mm-hmm. But I do agree with that in the fact that especially with Carnival, where they just lead the way when it comes to complimentary grab-and-go food.
Yeah.
If you know that a lot of people are going to be at Guy's, they're going to be at Blue Iguana, they're going to go to this place, that place, wherever, the deli, the what's the salad place in the Serenity Deck? You have so many options. So if you're going to have that many options, it makes sense that you would cut down on some of the variety in the Lido buffet.
I know at the top at Creations and Serenity and the buffet can get quite busy and challenging to navigate sometimes. How were the lines during the peak times?
Incredible. That's crazy, because I will say, as far as lines go, and that's one of the things, the areas that I would contrast. Forgive me, but there was a little bit of frustration when it came to the celebration, when it comes to the lines. And I felt like that was just a ship of lines, a whole story, a whole week of lines. Yes, it was worth the wait. Yes, there was so much to offer and so much good stuff, whether it was the comedy, whether it was the buffet, Shaq's Big Chicken. Guys, there was 45 minutes before guys would open, there would be a line that would stretch the length of the ship if they straightened it out. I have to say, on Vista, it was so nice. It's crazy because you're saying the ship of the same class, there were issues, but seating, lines, no problem whatsoever. This ship, the flow was tremendous on this ship.
How about the outside? You had Guy's Burger joint, the Blue Iguana Cantina, and a pizza in the back.
Not bad at all. See, there's always going to be a little bit of a line at the pizza. I have a conspiracy theory when it comes to Carnival and how they distribute their pizza. We won't get into that, but there is always a line. You might want to say maybe it's by design, but yeah, there's always a line. Guy's Burger during prime time, there's absolutely a line, but I saw, contrary to Celebration, on this ship, they would open it up when they opened it up, and then people would go there. There was no like, let's camp out the night before like it's a concert ticket. It didn't have that same vibe. This whole ship as a whole was a love fest. And my thing with Celebration was that it felt like people were, and the funny part, Doug, is I didn't even realize it. I didn't even realize that it seemed like everybody was kind of curmudgeonous on the Celebration. Not that they were having a bad time. It was just that, it's a struggle to get to this. I got to struggle to, there just wasn't, you didn't look around and feel the smiles, feel the happiness. And I didn't even notice that until I got on the Vista and I saw all the interaction, the joy, the happiness, the people enjoying each other, strangers making friends. It was so much more prevalent on the Vista than it was on the Celebration. And I think that has to do with a lot of things like lines and things like that.
That's fair. Any specialty restaurants?
I did not do any specialty dining. I kind of played it straight. Did the MDR. I did the buffet. I did some fresh creations. I did not do any specialty this time, but I have done specialty on the Horizon on that class of ships, and it's usually pretty good. There's no real complaints. I like the Italian joy, Cucina del Capitan, and I love the sushi. I love the a la carte sushi. It's while there is an upcharge for it, it's fairly moderately priced. I don't find that you're getting I don't find the pricing to be unfair at all.
Sailing solo, this is one problem I have had in the past, is kind of rolling into the main dining room, party of one, and realizing, where are they going to sit me? Am I going to be in the middle? Just kind of all kind of paranoia sets in sometimes. How was that experience?
I actually had a pretty enjoyable experience a couple of times, and that is always a little awkward no matter what. I can solo cruise, especially going last minute. I don't even try. I've cruised with groups of 30 people regularly with my group cruises, and I've been cruising with friends for years, but I'm a sea junkie. So if there is a sailing that's available at a great price and I got to pack and go right now, that's what I'm going to do. When it comes to dinner, you're right. That can be a little bit of an awkward time if you want to get a main dining room experience. But again, just the whole theme of this ship. And I did it on Celebration. They put me at a table. My table was by myself. I was filming there too. So I looked at it like a work experience and I enjoyed it. It was fine. And I left. Nobody came anywhere near me. Nobody spoke to me. Nothing. It was just in and out. That's it. Now on Vista, they always put me, even if it was near couples, even if it was I got into some really, really good conversations with other solo guests, couples. It was great. They just seem to, again, we talk about, and I've said it before, hardware versus software. I think when you have so much extensive hardware and so many bells and whistles on a ship, think about it. It's a lot of times, it's a lot of manpower to kind of control those moving parts. And when you have a little bit more of a simplified hardware experience, I think that provides for an environment where the software can shine. And that's what happened. It just seemed like everywhere on this ship, the whole crew it was just smiles all around. It was great. It was one of my favorite cruises, to be honest with you.
What time dining did you have, and how was your food throughout the weekend there?
Okay, so I did the your time dining. So I was with, whatever, different people all the time, and the food was consistent. The main dining rooms on Carnival, they're never going to blow you away, but all the courses were what you expected and done on the better side of good, including the chocolate melting cake.
Let's shift gears here and talk about the entertainment. How was it throughout your 6 nights?
So comedy, not going to lie to you, never have done this before on a Carnival ship. I kind of walked out of the comedy. Ooh. It wasn't at the level that I'm used to on Carnival Cruise Line, which is usually the leader, in my opinion, in cruise ship comedy. Now, I will say another interesting thing about this cruise that really, really kind of pulled at your heartstrings a little bit. First night, cruise director comes up and he says, you're going to see this cast, this show cast, the main show lounge cast. They've been working together for almost a year, and they've gotten very close. They're, and this was going to be their last performance. This is the last night, this last cruise of their contract. So he let us know that a lot of the shows might get a little emotional. You may sense that the cast is a little emotional, and that was kind of cool to hear at the beginning. And I did watch them through the week. I watched a few of their shows. Very, very impressed with all of them. And yeah, it was playlist production. So, you're not dealing with Shakespeare. You're not dealing with, high level, Broadway or West End competition here, but they were very entertaining. And the choreography was great. The music was great. The singing was great. Enjoyed it a lot. And what was really, really cool at the end. So I know I'm going on a little bit here, but Carnival does something interesting more than a lot of the other cruise lines. I think they cross-utilize. So not only did I see the playlist production cast in the playlist productions, I saw them in that roving 6-person band. 2 of the people that were in the playlist production cast were doing the heavy lifting for the regular, Ocean Plaza shows that they have, and, that generic pop band that they have. Not only that, I saw them moving paintings at the art auction, which really kind of blew me away. Have you ever seen that?
No, I've never seen that. No, I have seen the performers, the singers sing like a one show only type thing with the roving band, but never multiple times during a cruise.
No, they were in the band. They were the band.
That's crazy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then you could imagine you're sitting there, and I always like to go to an art auction.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, I will tell you right now, if you don't even plan on buying any art, it's an underrated thing. And yeah, of course, everything on the ship is a money grab, but you go in there, you get a couple of glasses of champagne, so you're feeling good. But these people really know about the art they're selling, and you get a real cool idea. And it's a little bit of an education, but think of it as like if you're going to a museum and you're sitting there with some champagne and you're getting, they're talking you through the art that they're selling. And it's fairly interesting to see how they, move these paintings and how they get people to buy. I enjoy it. But yeah, I was pretty, the main character who was doing a sort of like a male strip review type of thing in the main show lounge was literally running up and down the stage, pulling the paintings off as they were being sold.
What was the highest bid yet you heard when you were sitting in there?
$9,000.
Wow.
I don't know if that's high or low. Normally, maybe there's more. It was definitely not anything I was, but they're selling paintings, $9,000. It's cool how it works. Basically, they put all the paintings around the room, and you look, and there's hundreds of paintings, hundreds of pieces of work, and they invite you to just walk around and put a sticker on anything that you might be interested in. And then they use the ones that are that have the stickers placed on them to be in the show. And then they basically show videos regarding the artists, talk about, where they've been commissioned. And I enjoy it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I can tell you quite a bit about Peter Max and that painter of light, Thomas Kincaid, Gavdali, a lot of them in there. The highest one I've ever heard was $30,000 on a Holland America ship in the Caribbean.
Doug, I don't know how the marriage between art and cruise ship vacation traveling happened, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, exactly. How was the ship as far as crowds and congestion? You spoke about it wasn't bad in like the Lido and everything, but other spots around the ship, the pool decks, the aft pool, Serenity, all of that on sea days.
Home run, win, all across the board. I just enjoyed it. I love what Carnival does with the atrium, and there was just so many fun parties to be had in the atrium, and it was just so good to see. I can't remember a cruise ship experience where there was just a love fest going on between the guests, between people of all sizes, shapes, races, between the cast. I mean, the cast and the crew. What I was trying to say before I cut myself off, I think, was that on the final night, like I told you, 2 of the production playlist members were in the band. So the band was performing on Ocean Plaza on the final night, but because it was the last night and they were going to depart from the cruise ship after this performance, after this sailing, they all rendezvoused together, and a few of them had their families on board. And of course, you would imagine if if you have the talent to sing and dance, it probably comes from somewhere. So their parents were there, and they were inviting their parents. That same guy who was running around with the artwork, and who was doing the mail review strip thing, had his dad on board, and him and his dad did a rendition of Don't Stop Believing in the Ocean Plaza Lounge. And then they all were like teary-eyed. There wasn't a dry eye in the house because everybody who was in Ocean Plaza knew that this was a cast that was, separating after a long time. And then they did Last Dance by, who was it, Gloria Gaynor? Is that Gloria Gaynor? Donna Summer? I don't know. I get them confused.
Yeah, no clue.
But then they did a whole big dance, and everybody was hugging, kissing, crying, and it was like beautiful to watch. It was kind of like a bookend and almost like a microcosm of the whole cruise itself.
Did you spend any time in the nightclub on this sailing?
Yeah, that was the funny part too. I made a little video, and I just the art auction, because you're sitting in the art auction and you're in the back and I'm in the same chair, and you watch this fine art being described and these men in well-dressed suits and champagne going and people, I'll bid on that, and auctions going and nice music. And then literally about 12 hours later, same room, there's Cardi B and twerking and laser lights going. And I put a video together that just same point of view, same exact room, 12 hours later. It's just, Carnival makes good use of their space, I guess you might want to say. But that's the Limelight Lounge. And the Limelight Lounge is a venue that they use for the stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. They use it for a lot of multi-purpose stuff during the day, and it is the nightclub. And yes, I did make my way there. They did have a country night one night, which I have never seen on a Carnival cruise ship. There was line dancing going on, like high-level line dancing going on I think it was the last night of the cruise. Yeah, the DJ-driven country line dance night in the nightclub on a Carnival cruise. I was blown away.
I feel like the entertainment is more of a demographic thing, right? So they kind of look at the stats. It's same thing with the food. I mean, you have to remember, Carnival has 50 plus years of data on all their passengers and probably even the new ones as well.
Yeah, you're right when you say that, and it makes sense, but I didn't look at it that way. I figured like I didn't realize that cruise lines would play to the local demographic of the embarkation port, because I'm figuring, okay, it's tourist towns anyway, so people are flying in. But I guess you're right. It does make sense.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of data-driven decisions.
Even the background music that's, just sits on the ship. I think they have certain playlists. They do. For, I guess, certain areas, and, they take a look at the manifest and see who's dominating as far as, demographics, and, they'll cater the regular background music throughout the ship to that as well, I think.
Yeah. Ports of call, you did. Actually, you know what? Before we get to the ports of call, let's talk about the whole reason why you were there, the casino. So how was that as far as the smoke situation in and around it? And also, do they have a special, like an annex or non-smoking casino on this one?
Yes, there's a non-smoking casino, and it's a small little area. It looks like basically like if you were going to rewind time, and some of these cruise ships that were built in the 90s, there was just, that's where it is. It's regulated to a smaller room. It does have everything, but yeah, it doesn't really feel, you're not in the main casino. But again, give them credit for at least catering to the non-smokers.
Was the main casino pretty smoky?
Yeah, the casino was pretty smoky, and it didn't reverberate out of the casino, but when you're in the casino, you knew you were in a casino, definitely. And I got a bone to pick with you a little bit. I don't know why I said I was going to not drink. I wasn't going to overeat. I wasn't going to really gamble. And then I was like feeling good about not gambling on this ship for once. You know what? They get enough of my money. I throw plenty of money into those slot machines and those blackjack tables. But I'm walking around the ship, listening to my, my last cruise radio episode. And I'm listening, and you had somebody, I believe it was a Norwegian ship. I think it was Norwegian. If you remember the one that aired, maybe not last week, but the week before, and someone had hit on like a $3,000 to $5,000 jackpot on a slot machine. And I'm listening to this happen on your show, and I'm telling myself, oh, it happened on cruise radio. Why won't it happen here? $50 turns into $150, turns into $300, $600. Took a $600 hit this cruise because, I was inspired by, of course, you got to be in it to win it.
Well, maybe you'll get another free cruise. Did you play the Buffalo machine at all?
I didn't play the Buffalo. I'm told in my time in AC, those big fancy machines, stay away from them because a lot of the marketing and a lot of the bells and whistles and they rely on that to drive they will make the older looking crappier ones looser because it's harder to get people to sit at them. So it's probably not true, but I sit at those little crappy ones hoping for some sort of a big windfall from the old clunkers.
All right, 6 nights, Amber Cove, Half Moon, and Grand Turk was your itinerary. Talk to us about the ports of call and your highlight from each.
Okay, so Amber Cove, I did not get off the ship. I had just been there maybe a week and a half prior. And Amber Cove is Amber Cove. You guys, you know what that is. That's built by the cruise line, and it's a beautiful resort destination. I mean, to me, it feels like a Margaritaville. That whole pool setup that you have there, that inside-outside restaurant. They do have a really good restaurant there that is just off the ship. If you're getting off the ship out of the gift shop in Amber Cove and you go left, and you keep going left right to where that Amber Cove sign is, where everybody takes the pictures, there's a restaurant that's right there. Of course, it's a touristy restaurant, but I had a really good mofongo there. I had some good Dominican rum. I enjoyed myself there. I didn't do it this time, but just a little heads up. If you're going to definitely check out that restaurant, good music. It's got sort of an inside outside vibe. I like it. Now the other side, the middle where the pool bar is, that's a little bit more of your Margaritaville type. Like if you're on Grand Turk, a little bit more DJ driven pool party type thing. But they have a lot of cool things on this island. You can do like little nature walks. They have a bar that, it's, again, if it's not 120 degrees, you can climb up, not climb, but it's an elevated little mini mountain that you can climb up. This little trail that goes up to where you zip line, but then there's also a bar up there. You get a beautiful view. Tons to do.
Yeah, it's a hell of a walk up there, though, if you've had a couple of drinks.
Yeah, and those misters really don't help you too much. They spray those misters that, they're designed to steam you, I think.
Right, yeah. So that was Amber Cove. Half Moon, what did you do?
Half Moon was interesting because that was one of the things that excited me about this cruise. I've been to Half Moon Cay once, and that was the second cruise I ever took. So we're talking about 12 years ago. And you hear about, I feel like Half Moon is a little bit of a cult classic. People go there and they talk about, even though you got a tender, that water is so blue. It's so beautiful. There's not a ton to do on the island, but the beach, that little cove, everything, it just seems to work. And I was glad I went.
Yeah, Half Moon is a crowd favorite. Anything stick out to you there?
Not really. Just the beach. The beach is beautiful. The tenders were good. They were quick. No problem there. I liked the island grill. I always like to get on the private island and get some of the barbecue that they do. And they have a really cool bar. I think it's called the Lobsters. I said that if this was a drinking trip, this is exactly where I would perch up and kind of overlook the water. Beautiful view of the cruise ship. I did make my way over to the Captain Morgan's bar too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was cool. They changed that up a little bit. They don't have the upstairs available, or at least they didn't have it when I was there, but it has a really good feel in there too. And obviously they have a little water sport park. You could bounce around on, and there's tons of excursions you could do. They could do a really cool, I guess, snorkeling trips, and you can do the horseback riding into the water. So there's tons of stuff to do there, but honestly, what do you think? It's pretty much a beach day, right?
Pretty much. I do wonder why they closed that top deck. I wonder if someone got hurt or if it was like just way too hot outside.
Yeah, because I like that little, I was looking forward to getting a picture of that little crack in the wall that they designed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the cannon.
Yeah, they have a little crack in the wall and you could take a picture and frame it so the cruise ship is right in the middle. But no, you didn't have access to that this time. And obviously you got to get that picture of the I wish I could stay here forever sign, which is iconic there. Love that place. I was very, very happy that I got a chance to go back and just, yes, stare at the water, the sun, everything about it works. The beach is beautiful white sand, plenty of room, plenty of space. Love it.
And then your last port was Grand Turk. How was your day there?
Okay, here we go. Let's do Grand Turk. So Grand Turk is not to be outdone when it comes to having beautiful water. Notoriously gorgeous aqua green blue water there. So I love that. Got off the ship. Here's the deal. I was at Jack Shack maybe 2 years ago. I made a video that was a little controversial because everybody loves Jack Shack and everybody talks about how, yeah, I go to Jack Shack because it's, not the corporate giant and it's the mom and pop joint and this and that. And I get all that and I respect all that. But I went and I just had a bad experience. It just didn't seem like anybody wanted to be there themselves, let alone make me feel like I was welcome. I like to give them a chance. I tried the food. The food was good. There were issues. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back and try it. And I got to say, I was happy to report that if there were 7 or 8 issues that I talked about in that video, 6 or 7 of them were taken care of. Clean bathrooms, beautiful gift shop. They got a POS system to streamline the food ordering. I don't know how there were flies there. They got rid of the flies. I don't know how they did that. There were people smiling at me. Now the prices went up, which is, we could always count on that to happen. But the service overall, there was so much more of a better flow to the place that I loved it. I couldn't have been more complimentary about the improvements that were made at Jack Shack.
Did you do that? What are they famous for? The jerk chicken there?
Yep. Oh, it nailed it. Nailed it. It was so good. I got a beer called Down the Road. I don't know if you guys have ever had that. Local beer. I don't know. At least they say it's local. But yeah, a little bit of beer, some delicious jerk chicken, beautiful view. Jack Shack has bounced back as far as I'm concerned.
You mentioned the prices went up. What is it setting you back now?
Okay, so yeah, $19. It says right here, $19. Hey, under a 20, right? Okay, here's the 20. And this is like concession style. So you're paying for it at the POS system, and then they'll give you a ticket so you walk over. So $19. I give her a 20, $6 more. I'm like, how does that work? And then she just pointed to the whatever local tax fee charge, whatever it was that, was an extra $6 on top of the 19. So it was $26. Absolutely. You might want to say ridiculous, but listen, you're on vacation. And if it was bad, if I had a problem with it and it wasn't good jerk chicken, I'd be a little disappointed, but it was good. It delivered.
Wow. That tax really gets you.
Yeah. And I still couldn't tell you what the actual tax is, but
Man, it sounds like cruise line pricing before July 1st.
Buy a ticket to any concert. You think you're getting it for $90. Okay. That's $340. You didn't see the tax. It's just what it is nowadays. It's just surcharges and fees. I think there's some cracking down going on about that. And I think that's hence why you see the all-in cruise prices that are going on now. So I guess, people are pushing back a little bit. I did want to say, as far as Grand Turk goes, I don't know if a lot of people know about this place, but if you go on, as soon as you get on the island and you go through the gift shop, everybody makes the left pretty much. You go into either Margaritaville, the beach, Jack Shack, maybe some shopping or whatever. If you go to the right and continue going to the right, there's a place there called the Beached Whale. Have you seen that place?
Yeah, I believe they built that during the shutdown.
Yes, and I went there 2 years ago, and it was like a hidden gem, and I liked it. I was very comfortable in there, but there was literally nobody in there because I feel like probably nobody knew it was there. Mm-hmm. This time I went, it was about 75% full. Friendly faces everywhere, smiling. I didn't try the food. I didn't even get a drink. I just wanted to go and see what the culture and the vibe looked like over there, and it was phenomenal. It looked like it's improving. It looks like more people are learning about it. I did hear, and I'm not sure, maybe I heard or think it's a subdivision of Margaritaville.
I know it's part of the whole Buffett, Margaritaville, Landshark conglomerate there. I think it may be concessions at Margaritaville, like a little food shack.
Either way, it's branded on the island as a separate establishment. It's not connected to Margaritaville in any way. It's a good, couple 100 yards away. I definitely recommend checking that out. Beautiful view of the cruise ship, a little bit less. I guess it's probably like the way I would call it is like a little bit of a trade-off between Margaritaville and Jack Shack. It's got the newness, modernness feel and comfortableness of Margaritaville, but the size and intimacy of Jack Shack. So I liked it.
The only issue I have with going to the right there where that beached whale bar is gives a great photo opportunity with the aesthetics with the pier and the ship, but the sand fleas are so bad over there.
Okay, I didn't get that. So that's good information to know. I didn't get the sand fleas, but yeah, that was it. And obviously no trip to the authentic Caribbean island such as Grand Turk would be complete without making my stop at Starbucks on the way back to the ship. And that was it for Grand Turk.
My one issue with both Grand Turk and Amber Cove are those pools are beautiful, but when there are two ships in port, between the mix of the sunscreen, all the bodies in there, the oil floating around in the pools, it's just like one big stew, and it's so hot there too. So the pool's kind of hot. It's not my thing. I don't know if you're a pool person or not, but count me out.
Really can't. They really, and there's a foggy hue that starts to develop, yes. And again, it's the oldest joke in the book, but it's the truest joke in the book. When you see the guy who's a 12-pack deep who hasn't gotten out of the pool, we don't have to guess what's going on there.
You leave Grand Turk and you start heading back towards Central Florida, Port Canaveral. There's been some quite over the past couple of, past couple of months, some nasty weather out there. Did you hit any of that, or were you sunny skies and clear water?
I'll say this, between the two cruises that I just did, which is the Celebration 7 days and the Vista 6 days, basically both Eastern to mid-Caribbean, I've never had such smooth sailing on any cruise ship I've ever been on. Awesome. It was very, very smooth. Alarmingly smooth. So I did not. There was crazy weather, and I was watching the weather a little bit, and I thought maybe there might be an issue at one of the, some things that were developing near the Dominican Republic, but I guess we dodged that.
You get back to Port Canaveral. How was the debark process?
Debark was smooth. I decided to just get off this ship. I know there's an option. If you want to get up super early, you can just grab your stuff and go. Otherwise, it comes to a certain point where you have to kind of wait and check. I got up and I was ready. I was already in line before they were letting people off the ship. And I guess there was that was unusual, because I heard one of the people that were with the walkie-talkies saying there's she said into the walkie-talkie, and this is at 7:20 in the morning, and she's like, looks confused on her face, and she says into the walkie-talkie, there's a buttload of people trying to get off this ship right now.
How long did it take from ship to curb?
I would say, because like I said, there was a bunch of people that were trying to get off the ship, more than usual, I guess. It was probably about 25 to 30 minutes, which is not bad at all. But usually that early in the morning, it's a little quicker, but I guess a lot of people had early flights. Oh, I will say this too. This was my first IMAX experience on a cruise ship. Have you ever done that, Doug?
Just the demo when it first came out. Never have actually seen an IMAX on land or on a cruise ship.
Same. I had never had an IMAX experience whatsoever. And I just said, yeah, I was a little disappointed because I was like, oh, I'm going to just have a movie theater experience. I'll go in, I'll get the popcorn, soda, maybe some Twizzlers, and watch a good old fashioned movie on a cruise ship, an IMAX movie. And they didn't have popcorn. They didn't have popping popcorn. They give you the skinny pop from the bag. That was like a little disappointing, but hey, these are not big problems here. But I watched the Robert Redford narrated feature about the national parks.
Okay.
Oh my God, you would have loved this, Doug. It was told through the eyes of Robert Redford's narration, but also a group of three people. One middle-aged gentleman who was very active, a young lady, and then another guy who was like, this guy was a superhero with all things that were like outdoors, bicycles, mountain climbing, everything. And they had drones and they had everything. And they kind of told the story through their eyes while Robert Redford was narrating it, and just went from various national parks and rides through Wyoming and wherever else. And it was beautiful. Robert Redford was like, it was like a little bit of I guess, a fundraising piece too, because they were talking about trying to preserve these natural parks and talking about how there was Roosevelt's who, I guess, signed the deal that said we were going to establish national parks. So it was cool. They gave you that history, and it was definitely great. Even if you didn't get to see it in an IMAX, I would recommend watching it.
Looking back here, any first-time tips for anyone sailing Carnival Vista or heading to Amber Cove, Grand Turk, or Half Moon?
First-time tips, definitely find your way to the atrium. Anytime there's something going on in the atrium, take advantage of that 100%. I would say a sleeper food area of the ship, the Carnival Deli, is phenomenal. I mean, artisan sandwiches, it's complimentary. You don't have to pay. The lines are quick. I think that's phenomenal. I definitely recommend the deck parties. They did the glow party as well as the mega deck party. They also did a white party inside the atrium. Carnival really, really knows how to do nightlife. And of course, on any Carnival ship, and this one was no different, the piano bar. And I'll compound on that by saying, one night, Doug, and it was the very last night of the cruise, that night when I told you about the, emotional, tearful goodbye of the Playlist production cast, I made it a point to just bounce around on that ship and really take in the entertainment. And I was kind of moving to me through the duo that was in the atrium, these two singers that were absolutely, incredible, singing kind of standard pop hits, but like almost acoustic versions of them, to the violin players. I don't know if they still call them celestial strings. They had, and Doug, Red Frog. I don't want to go too long here. I know we already said a lot, but the Red Frog Rum Bar, on Horizon, it's Guy's Flavor Town. Mm-hmm. I'm in love with this Red Frog Rum Bar concept, where they originally were going to have that be their brew pub program before they got in with Guy Fieri, but this room was phenomenal, and they had a 22-year-old South African kid singing. I mean, this guy was Elvis, Johnny Cash, and Waylon Jennings rolled into one, and he had the crowd moving just with him and his guitars and his twisted tees, and he had this crowd by the palm of their hand. We were jumping or listening to the country. But point is, all across the ship, whatever room, pick a room, the entertainment was top notch.
Man, it sounds like you had an awesome cruise. What was the biggest highlight for you?
The biggest highlight for me was that night. That was what I just described. I probably should have saved it. But yes, that really, I get that way on the last night of a cruise. I start taking it in. Being a cruise junkie, I like everything about cruising, and I try to get a feel for what the ecosystem is on a cruise ship. And it was kind of like a bit of a cinematic moment at the end of that cruise when I was walking around. I was going from room to room, just watching these ultra talented people just sing and play and perform their hearts out. And then it was like the last night, and you're getting a little sad because the cruise is over. And then you walk by the auction room and you see the auction guys shaking their hands, celebrating a good week of, pushing these paintings on people, and it's just coming to an end. And they're going to start it up again and do it all the next day. But it was like almost like I almost heard music playing in my mind when I was walking around the ship, just watching everybody kind of just pack up, end this cruise, and get ready to start a new one. So that was my favorite moment.
Well, Tommy, you mentioned you were doing a little bit of content on this cruise. You brought your computer with you and everything. So where can we find that?
Yeah, on YouTube, I'm making a kind of a big push. I have the Always Be Booked Cruise podcast you could hear anywhere, but I am making a big push on YouTube, and I'm doing some vlogging, and I'm having a little fun with it. It's a little bit of a different thing for me, but so far already is my embarkation day. You'll be able to see my mad scramble to make the ship on my embarkation day vlog, and I got a couple that I'm wrapping up now. And yes, there is a ship tour. That's pretty much it. Always Be Booked on YouTube. Thank you, Doug.
And we'll link to all of that in the show notes as well at cruiseradio.net. Tommy Casabona, always great talking to you, buddy.
Same, Doug. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,